Okay. Good evening, everybody. Are we ready? Hello? Come and join you when you're ready. I was with Richard last night. He's brilliant. Okay. Firstly, can we get a round of applause for the first two speakers? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to take you on a little journey now around the country, because a lot of you will know that we've been visiting various parts of the country over the last, I think we're on 8 weeks now, and we've got another 16 weeks to go. And every time we just think we're getting to the end of the booking, someone else books another one. So one of the things, young lady, ask the technical man. Hello? Hello? That's better. Okay. Thank you. How far would we have got if the young lady hadn't spoken up? Okay, so we're on this journey, Gloria and myself, and we are heading round the UK talking about food. And pretty fair to understand that there is an issue with these three things. If there is no farmers, there is no food, and without any food, we definitely don't have any freedom. We all know where they're trying to get us to. I definitely ain't taking part. I've looked at the bugs. I ain't having none of that. I've looked at synthetic meat. I definitely ain't having none of that. And, you know, as we drift through life and we come out with some experience, we start to understand that how stacked up it is against us. Now, one of the things which we have witnessed going around the country is, whilst we're trying to get farmers to attend these meetings, is there any farmers in the room tonight? Okay, 2. Now, as we're going around the country, we don't get very many farmers come to the talks. And that surprises me not. And I'll tell you why. I believe that by 2030, we will only have 20% of the farmers left in farming. And you can go, that's a little concerning. Okay, so tonight I'm going to take you to a different side of that and the positive side of it. Okay? Because if someone's in a position as a farmer that they get offered £300,000 to sell their farm, bear in mind that's not the money for the farm, that's just a bonus. They get the £300,000 as a get out of farming payment. Do you blame them? No. Now, what we're seeing as we're travelling around the country, and Gloria will testify to this, we're seeing a massive movement of people that are buying land to get into farming. Now, for those that do or don't know, if you follow me on social media, if you don't, we have set up a CIC. We've set up the Food Finders Hub, for those who know. The Food Finders Hub came out of a conversation between a friend and I, and we set up the website foodfindershub.org. Okay, it's changed its domain purposely. So it's set up to take into account farmers that want to sell to the public. And when I say farmers, I also include things like the veg box scheme that are advertising at the back of the room. If anybody's local and they're looking for really good quality organic veg groceries delivered to their door, talk to the guys at the back of the room, because that's what I want to talk about tonight, okay? We've noticed travelling around the country that the people that are getting into farming have no expectations about subsidies. They have no understanding of farming, but what they do have is an understanding of wanting to feed you guys. Now, what I think is going to happen is the fact that we're going to lose a lot of farmers. The people coming into the system are going to need a lot of assistance, and that's where we all come in. And I include myself in that because, as most of you will know, I'm no longer on the farm. So I've got a sabbatical. I'm out until the end of October. And I believe that in between now and October, something amazing is going to happen. Adversity equals opportunity. And for me, I believe that some opportunity is going to present itself for me to do somewhere in the country. As long as it's in driving distance of me and Mum, will be all right. Now, Gloria will testify to this. We've done a fair part of the country. We drove right down to Land's End, and I mean right down to Land's End, in a camper van that was 39 years old, that I bought for £1,250. And I'd crashed my car. The insurance company didn't pay out what it was worth. And I thought, well, if I buy another car, the problem is where we're going to sleep. If we end up with a night or two where we don't get anyone put us up, and mostly, and there's some of the faces in the room tonight that have kindly put us up, or that have kindly organised events for us, or have kindly donated to the tour. If it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't be here. So for me, to be here is thank you to you guys. Now, what we're witnessing along the way, I thought was going to be loads and loads of farmers wanting to come out and talk to us and say, yeah, no. Now, we have spoken to a lot of farmers and interviewed quite a lot of farmers, but we've got two types of farmers. The farmers that are going, I've had a gutful, I've had enough, I'm going to take the money and I'm going. And there's a lot of them. And when you sit down and understand the bullshit, excuse my French, but it is bullshit, what's going on at governmental level, and you understand it ain't even our government was pulling the strings, and you understand just how bad the situation has got for them people who are centuries deep in running farms, centuries deep in living on that land, passionate about what they do, are that broken they don't want to continue. But then there's the other side of the farmers. And while we were down in Truro, we'd got down to Exeter, and we were heading to Truro down in Cornwall, and got a phone call to say the event was cancelled down in Truro. And I thought, well, we've got 3 days. So I messaged the girl and I said, listen, is it okay, Joe, if we still come? She said, yeah, of course it is. I said, cracking. So we got as far as Exeter to do an interview with a farmer who'd forgot we were going, who was busy on the farm, and he'd forgot he was putting us up for the night. So I just said to Gloria, don't worry, we'll head straight to Joe's. Problem was we couldn't get hold of Joe. So we sat in the Tesco's car park, and I posted on Farmers to Action's WhatsApp group, is there anyone in the Truro area that can give us somewhere to park up for the night? And within minutes, we'd got a call from a guy, Erwin, who kindly put us up for the night. Now, the next morning, and this is where I talk about the difference in farmers and farmers. So Erwin took us on a whistleblow tour of his farm. Now, everything I disagree with in farming sits in big farms. And this guy's got a big dairy farm, 500 cattle that they're milking. However, I came out of there really, really impressed. And I put some posts up on Facebook about it. And after I'd had a row with a few vegans about my comments, because I do like to upset them. Well, no, actually, they like to upset themselves. The initiatives they're using on the farm are just mind-blowing. And one of them, which really tickled me, was the fact that they put solar panels on the farm, on the roofs, not on farmland, right? They put the solar panels in, but couldn't connect it to the grid. So anything they'd got over was going to waste. So I said, well, that's a shame. He said, well, that's what we thought. He said, but rather than running freezers that keep the milk chilled, we've got an ice making machine, and all the spare solar goes into producing ice that chills the milk when it comes out of the dairy. Genius, big tick, massive savings. And when we went through the main food place, they'd got these blue lines down the side of where the cows get through the fence to get the hay. And I was like, what you got blue lines for? And he said, well, he said, when cows eat, they saliva and it eats up the concrete. He said, so they don't eat the concrete dust. He said, we put these blue lines down. He said, and that enables, that seal allows them to eat straight off the floor. And I thought, this is someone who not only wants to do his job, he understands his job. And there was just so many things on the farm that I was like, that makes a lot of sense. That's really good. You know, while I come away and shook his hand and said, this isn't how I think farming should be, I still had to agree it was a good way forward, because the dairy industry is one of the ones that's getting slaughtered to the ground. And that's something that, you know, these guys are going to have to make a difference with. Now, we then went to see another guy the next day called James. Now, James was lovely. Ex-forces guy, went back to the family farm, went home and said, we need to get out of dairy. Much to his dad's disgust, who's obviously the farmer, and his brother, who's been running the farm while he's been away. And he said, we need to get out of dairy. There's no money in it. They got a herd of Dexter cows instead. Now, I don't like Dexter cows because I used to have one called Daisy, and she thought she was a show jumping horse, and it don't matter what field I put her in, she got out every night. She charged police cars, ran at police helicopters, you name it, she was good at it, right? You can understand where she was coming from. So they've got a herd of Dexter cows, and they run them over. Has anyone heard of like Lays? You hear a lot about Lays grass. So the government pays the farmers to grow the grass, okay, and it's really rich in nitrogen and so forth. And talking to the farmer, he was saying, oh, well, it's really good if we grow these particular things. Okay, why? Because that one's got a slightly longer root on it, so it draws the carbon further down in the ground, takes the goodness down. Oh, okay. And as I got talking to him, he said, yeah, and then the next thing we're doing, he said, when the herd of Dexters goes through the field, we've got some free-range hens that come through behind them. So, of course, chickens come through and they scrap all the cow dung about, and they eat the bugs and the flies that are there, and they eat. They get really good nutritious food. They eat the grass lower, because Dexters will take it down to about 4 inches. Chickens will take it down to 1 inch. So the grass gets a good cut, well fertilized, and they get really good quality chickens and dairy, the beef at the back of it. Then we went to another guy, and this guy is now changing over to what I deem as the new style of farming. Now, for me, the new style of farming is very much about using these. Not big commercial tractors smashing the ground. Gloria and I were going around on the back of Bury St Edmunds, where we come from, and we came to a point in the village where the roads are all flooded, and they'd been sugar beeting. And the sugar beet harvester with the sugar beet loaded weighs about 80 tonne, and the ground was mullered. It was so compact that the water couldn't go anywhere. That's no good. That's the reason farmers get a massive amount of abuse about nitrogen runoff, because you put your nitrogen on the ground and then it rains and it can't go into the ground. So the only place it can go is into land, into the drains, back into the water system. It doesn't do any good in the ground. So these farmers are starting to look at this stuff and starting to address how they can get a better result. So he was growing everything how I do. So how I farm, and Andrew will testify to this, he came out and set this up with me, I grow on long strips. So you put your compost down, and then next to it you put wood chip, compost, wood chip, compost, wood chip, and you work on the beds. Now, most farmers will produce wheat at about 4.2 tonne an acre. It earns £40 a tonne after they've paid for the nitrogen and the glyphosate. Okay, so they can earn about £160 an acre of land. You need a massive amount of land to pay for a £300,000 tractor. It does not stack up. Now, for me, I can grow 40 tonne of food easily on an acre just growing vegetables. The problem with wheat and barley, and like where we come from in East Anglia, and Andrew can tell you this as well, that we grow commodity crops: wheat, barley, oats, sugar beet, rye, rape. We don't grow anything you eat. You can't go out to any of our fields and just pick some food to eat something. We don't produce any animals. The village I grew up in had 7 farms that had animals on. Grandad, 500 cows. Butchers, 300 cows. Terry Clements and Gerald Clements, 10,000 pigs. The Farrer family, 3,000 pigs. The Duchesnes, 5,000 pigs. And I never remember the other guy's name, but chickens, turkeys, ducks and geese and everything else. Now we've got one woman's got 1 donkey. And she won't let me eat it. So we're on a very, very changing landscape for farmers. And it isn't looking very good for the farmers that are in. Now, what we've got to do is make a decision as members of the public what it is we want to eat. Gloria, may I borrow you, darling? Now, I'm going to ask a favour of the room, and there's a reason I do this, and I do this at every solitary event. If you don't want your face to be shown when I do this, go like that, right? Because it's important I get this photograph, and I'll tell you why. So I'm going to ask you one question, and you will all put your hands up, I'm sure. And when I ask this question, I'm going to break this into 2 sections. So if I asked you the question of would you like to buy food from a farmer directly, that could be directly as in from a box scheme like the guys at the back. That could be from a food hub, that could be from a farm shop. But when I say from a farmer direct, you get the gist. What I don't want to encourage anyone to do, and I do mean this, don't encourage anyone to spend money in supermarkets. They are vile, and they are the reason we are now losing all of our farmers. So, I'm going to ask you one question. The question is, if you could, would you buy chemical-free food, not organic, chemical-free food, direct from a farmer? Show of hands, please. All good? Thank you, everyone. Now, the reason I get this picture at every event is on all of the WhatsApp groups and all the Facebook groups that are the farmers that I belong to, I keep posting the pictures. So tomorrow I will put on social media, oh, interesting, we're in the, in Derbyshire last night, and everyone in the room wanted chemical-free food direct from a farmer. Now, when I first did it, for the first 4 or 5 times, everyone eventually said, Mark, we get the picture. What is it you want us to do? I want you to look at this. What do people want? And when are you going to give it to them? Because the problem is, nitram and glyphosate are not good things. People tell me I'm allergic to gluten. You're not, probably. You are probably allergic to the glyphosate changing the protein in the wheat, and that's what you're allergic to. There's so many chemicals pumped on fields that you don't know about. Everyone knows about, chucking nitrogen on to make things grow and chucking glyphosate on to kill all the weeds. There's about another 50 you don't know about. We are the only people who can make a decision here. Now, one of the things which I suggest to people, but I'll ask the question first. Has anyone in the room, apart from Andrew Bridgen, because he doesn't count if you wrote to him, right? Because he probably would have replied. Has anyone written to their MP and got the response what you thought you should have got? Not what you expected to get, what you thought you really should have got. Has anyone actually had that happen? Interesting. No. Now, one of the things which I suggest to people is, in your area, write to a local farmer, find out who they are, and write to your local farmer. Ask them a question. Do you produce anything on the farm that you sell directly to the public? And if so, how do I get hold of it? We either collectively, as the public of this country, help them, or they're not going to be here. That's a choice we have to make. They're fighting the cause every day. A friend of mine posted on social media today, and they run a pig farm just outside Bury St Edmunds and run a lovely little farm shop. And they posted on today that rather than putting prices up, they're going to work on less, and they're putting their prices down 10% to help the public. And I thought, cracking idea. Now, this couple are lovely. They're a real, genuine. Their ancestry lines go back in their farming. You know, the son is desperate to take over the farm, and dad's desperate to hang on to it to hand it over. And I posted it, and it had about 50 shares, I think. But one of them was Gareth Wyn Jones. And I mentioned Gareth in a video earlier that I'd done about coming here tonight, because Gareth has about, I think, about 3 million followers on social media. He's a really nice guy. I speak to Gareth often. And he's just one of the people who's taken the time to really understand what's going on. And a lot of people say to me, he doesn't seem very awake. He is. Like a lot more people, and a lot more people are very fearful about saying anything because they're terrified what will happen to them and their farm. And the reason I say that is because farmers are getting victimised and picked off individually, one at a time, because of what's going on. Okay? Now, as we travelled down to West Country, we visited loads of places. We've come across some absolutely beautiful places down there, farm shops that I didn't even think existed. We went, Gloria tell you, we went to this one just outside Somerton, down in Somerset. And the guy we were staying with said, "It's a lovely little farm shop down there." And we went along and got a lovely little shed full of vegetables, all produced on site. Loads of lovely meat, all produced on site. Dairy from the farm next door. And I was like, how hard is it really for us to go back a step to go down that road? And the farmers tell me, oh, that doesn't work. The farmers tell me nobody wants that anymore. Well, I don't think that's right, because every town we visit, there's a load of hands go up saying that's exactly what they want. Now, I understand from the farming point of view, coming from a farming background, I understand what they're up against, and they are terrified. And I genuinely mean that. See, the problem is, if you have been given the gauntlet to take on the family farm that's already gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 generations, and you're looking at it going, if I don't sell it, I'm going to lose it. And if I lose it, I can't hand it on. And that is putting people at a suicidal point. We've got to change that. And that's only going to change by people standing up. You know, I'd be the first one to say grab your pitchforks, but apparently that's only allowed to dig these days. You're not allowed to grab your pitchfork. And you mustn't suggest it, otherwise, as Andrew said, Mr. Starn would probably have me in one of those spaces he's creating. So where do we go from here, guys? Is the question, because we're touring the entirety of the UK. We've done the Land's End section now. We've got to here. I thought I was going down to Doncaster tomorrow, and someone's just told me apparently I'm going up. But we're doing the whole of the UK, and we've still got some dates if anyone wants to still book one in. We are going to end up in Cumbria, and then we jump to Northern Ireland before we go up to John O'Groats. We've got people coming out of the woodwork all over the place. We've got a guy we're going to meet on a 400 acre organic farm just outside Merseyside. I had a guy ring me the other day from just up above Newcastle, so we're going to be staying with Dave when we go up to see them. And this guy's got 1,000 cows he's milking, all organic. I mean, that is unheard of, them kind of levels. And do you know what the guy said to me? He said, you know the problem, don't you? I said, what's that? He said, I ain't got enough cows. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if I had 2,000 cows, I could probably, in some way, shape or form, keep up with the orders. That says to me that the farmers who are getting 46 pence a litre supplying supermarkets are going down the wrong road. So, but they're so entrenched in the system, and a lot of them, the problem is that they've taken millions in investment from the supermarkets, and I mean millions, to put in new sheds, new parlours, everything, right? That they then end up with a problem that they're so tied in, they don't know how to get out. I don't know if anyone's seen the video, it was Gareth and Jones who posted it this week, I shared it out, that Muller, in their wisdom in the last 2 weeks, have decided they haven't collected any milk from a lot of their farms, so it's going down the drain. Now, Muller haven't even had the courtesy to contact the farmers to tell them why they haven't collected it, when they're going to collect it, if they're going to collect it, or if they're going to pay them for collecting it. Now, work this out. At 46 pence a litre, some of these smaller farms even produce 1,000 litres twice a day, right? So you can look at us about 1,000 quid's worth of milk a day, they're sticking down the drain. They're 2 weeks in and Muller still hasn't given them an answer. How many businesses do you know could stand to lose £1,000 a day and still expect to be there? Can you now see why these farmers are going, this is my get out of jail card. I'll take the 300 grand, sell the farm, sell the kit, walk away. Go on. Interesting. Now, when the Bover thing came out, I was one of the first ones. I spoke to Tim from Pro Farming, and I said, here, Tim, I said, I've got a bit of a twist on this. I said, I don't think that they accidentally leaked this information. I think they did it on purpose to deliberately trash the dairy industry, right? Now, bear in mind that Arla owns 72%, I think it's about 72% of all the dairy industry in the UK is under Arla. All the milk from all the different farms goes to Arla. Why would anyone in their right mind sign a death warrant on their own business when they control 70% of the market? Well, imagine what it's worth. So who paid them to do that? Andrew, will I tell you? Follow the money. I guarantee you'll come back to the WEF, those in control of it, every time. Now, for Arla, it doesn't actually make any difference because if they don't sell real milk, they can sell pretend milk. I don't know if you've ever tried to milk an almond, but it's quite difficult. Oat milk, almond milk, coconut milk, all of these different synthetic milks. And this is where we're going. They don't care if they trash their industry. They don't have a clue about how they'll do things in the future. You'll get maggot milk. They don't care. I do. Whole reason I'm on this tour is because of my kids and grandkids. That's it. I'm 57. I've had a cracking innings. Genuinely cracking innings. I've left the farm twice. Go on. Seriously, twice I left the farm. Left the village. And now we're on tour. Going around the UK. Meeting all these lovely people. At some point, there has to be a decision made by us. And for me, my decision was, a few months ago, was, okay, if I've got to go from the farm, then what the hell am I going to do? And Ray, who owned the farm, said, before he died, he said, I said, I've been thinking about doing this tour. And he went, you should. I said, I might go and talk to more people. He said, you should. So here we are. Travelling all around the country, meeting lovely people, talking to farmers, interviewing farmers, understanding why they want to get out, understanding why new ones want to get in. And that's the bit what really excites me. The ones that want to come into the industry, especially when you look at it and you think to yourself, if you were looking at an industry which has been desecrated by the government, would you want to get into it? These people want to get in because they want to produce food. They want to involve the community. They want to be in the position of making a difference. And that's what this is all about. For me, the tour, you know, we're going to get to John O'Groats at some point, probably in September. I hope. Now, for me, at 57, I've made a decision that it's time for me to put my big boy pants on, right? And I would suggest to anyone in the room, you know, when you talk to people like Andrew, who has been very fecking brave, you know, and you know, people say to me, "Oh, you're ever so brave," and I think, "I ain't." He is, right? He's been really brave. For Andy, over the back, who spoke first, the electroculture side, we all know is you mustn't talk about that because free energy. Can't be having that. That's why the technology is 120 years old and they still don't know about it. And let's be honest, that was when they were doing big things with it 120 years ago. So how old was it? Everyone has a place to play in this jigsaw puzzle. If we are going to stop the rot, and it is rot, this woke nonsense trash, what is being taught in the schools. We were in Burnley last night, and there was a lass I've seen her speak once before, Victoria, who's a midwife. She made me cry first time I heard her speak, and because she was talking about what goes on in the NHS. And when I was looking at how we were going to put tonight together, and you know, Andy obviously coming to talk about electroculture, me talking about the farming, Andrew coming to talk about predominantly about the health side of things, they're all connected. Everything what is wrong with this country at the minute is connected. So for me, the bit what leads me nicely in to introduce David is the fact that everything in this country what is wrong, and I'm one of the first ones for years who hasn't voted and said along the way, I don't want to vote because I don't want to be part of the system. Well, I've come to the conclusion, guys, probably like a lot more people, you can kick it as hard as you like, right? It needs dealing with from the inside out. What they've done in America, and as Andrew rightly said, you know, what they've achieved with Doge is amazing. What we've got to do at the next general election is make a difference. And I mean a huge difference, which gives me the opportunity to introduce Dave Baggett. To talk about farmers, food and freedom. Guys, thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. The reason for the bowler hat, okay, is because I've worked with Mark before, and we were, where were we? Wellingborough. And I'd seen a bowler hat in a shop, and he said, "You want one really, don't you? You really want a bowler hat?" And I rushed back to this shop, and it was in Derbyshire, in Matlock, and it didn't fit. I got there at 5 minutes to 5, ran to the back of the shop, and the bowler hat didn't fit. So anyway, I bought one on eBay, and it fits. Right, quick introduction of me and why I'm here and what this is all about, what Farmers Food and Freedom is all about. I'm 68. I know I don't look it, but I'm 68. Brought up on a farm, dairy farm. We had 80 cows when I was a kid. I used to get up with my dad and milk before I went to school, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And when I was 16, I went through probably what the farmers are going through now that Mark's explained. My dad said to me, "Back to school, son. Go to school, get an education." Went to school, got an education. All I wanted to do was farm and drive a tractor. That's all I wanted to do. And then he says, "Well done, son. You got your O levels, got your A levels. I found you a place at university. Get yourself to university, get a degree." So I went to Newcastle University, and they did a degree in agricultural engineering. So I became an agricultural engineer, in fact, Bachelor of Science with honours. I thought, he's got to be impressed with this. I can even use it on the farm. So I went home, and he said, "Well, son, the next step, you've got to go and see the world at somebody else's expense." And I thought, I just want to drive a tractor, Dad. So anyway, got a job. I was the youngest engineer, graduate engineer that Flymo Manufacturing in Aycliffe had ever had. I got my first patent at 26 with Flymo for the air cushion mower, the Flymo that collects the grass. That's mine. Then I went on through my life working in heavy industry. I worked in the compressed air industry. I used to go home every weekend to farm. I used to take my holidays and drive a combine. Loved it. No matter where I was in the world, I'd come home to combine. How sad is that? But it was one hell of a life, and I loved it. I met one guy, and he said to me, I hate public speaking, by the way, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. And he says, one day, somebody will say something that triggers you, and you'll stand up on your hind legs, and you'll just start to talk to the audience. So you're getting it now. Anyway, I worked all over the world. I even worked in Derbyshire. And I had worked in the northeast of England, and for the biggest supply company to Nissan. I was actually the engineer and director of a company called Akira Hoover, and we supplied all the interiors for Nissan. And when I left that company in 1996, Nissan cars had 98% local content. Local content means made in England, right? 98%. Most of that was made in the northern region. The only bit of the car that I didn't understand was the fabric. I know this has got nothing to do with Farmers Food and Freedom, but it'll all make sense. So I knew the only bit of the car I didn't understand was the fabric on the seats. And it's the most important bit, because when you open your car door, the fabric's on the seat and you see it, and you either love it or you hate it. It's also on the door pads and on various other bits of the car. So I came down here to work in Derbyshire for Guildford Europe in Alfreton. And boy, did that change my life. I stayed down here for 2 years, bought a house down here, and I love it down here. Still farm. But I was approached by my previous company, and they wanted to send me to China. This was in 1998, to teach the Chinese how to put interiors into cars. I know you all think I'm probably a pretty bad man now, but at the time I loved it. So I was in China for 12 and a half years working for different companies, and at vice president level, at high level in the company. I had 3,000 Chinese working for me at one stage, and boy, did we build bits for cars like you can't imagine. Not sweatshops, good quality parts. Some of the parts did come back to the UK, but only when the UK or the German tooling broke down. That's the only time I would ship them. I wouldn't ship anything from China back to the UK, the car industry, because I left the car industry strong, and that's the way I wanted it to remain. I came back to the UK. I missed all of the Tony Blair years. I was away. I hate that man, and you're about to find out why. I came back having spent my life, or a big chunk of my life, living in Shanghai. I knew Shanghai like the back of my hand. It's 47k across Shanghai. So I knew that place. I can speak Mandarin. If you can speak Geordie in Mandarin, you can talk to 98% of the world. So anyway, I finally came back after 12 years. That's one full cycle. In China, for every year you're an animal. You can be a snake. I'm actually a monkey, right? Which means a bit mischievous and naughty. So anyway, I came back to the UK and walked around Newcastle, my hometown, scared the living daylights out of me. There was cameras everywhere. I felt I was being watched all the time. I didn't know what the hell had happened. Nothing was like this in Shanghai. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been back to Shanghai for about 8 years. But I was shocked and stunned. And the people that I worked with didn't really want to work. They turned up, but they didn't really want to work. The spirit, the craziness, the madness wasn't there. There was no passion. So I thought, well, what the hell is going on here? What's happened? What's Blade done? So anyway, I thought, right, automotive, what's going on in automotive? So contacted my mates in Nissan and said, what's the local content now on a Nissan Qashqai? Can anybody guess what it was? As I said before, 1998, it was 98%. It was actually 15%. 15%. Now, I knew that that business hadn't come to China because I was in China watching everything that Nissan were up to. I was supplying the same parts in China. So I knew. And when you check, Tony Blair had shipped it out to most of Europe and to Visegrad. You know, he had took all of those good jobs. We had trained kids in the Northeast, and Rover did the same right across the UK. Ford were good at it as well. We trained kids to design bits for cars. All of that's gone. They became warehouses, right? So I was bloody angry, and I got into politics. And I rejoined the Conservative Party. I know. And I became agent. Well, I got kicked out of the Conservative Party soon after I joined because I actually wrote to Theresa May and called her a bloody traitor, which is what she is. So anyway, got kicked out of the party, and then we get pretty close to 2019. There's another election coming up, and I was asked to rejoin. And I said, it's not that easy. I got kicked out for calling the leader a traitor, you know. And it was a great politician who I've got a lot of respect for. It wasn't Andrew, it was another one. And it was a Welsh guy whose name I'm not going to tell you. And anyway, he got me back in the party. The party made me agent for North West Durham. North West Durham had been controlled by the Labour Party for 103 years, right? And I got a candidate pushed on me from CCHQ, Richard Holden, and helped to make him, he became chairman of the party, helped to make him an MP, and then COVID struck. And at the time, I was chairman of the party up there, and I was also working for Richard 1 day a week. I actually worked for 7 days a week. I only got paid off the government for one, but who cares? I was involved with the rollout of the COVID response manual. And it was happening, and it was happening, and it was happening. We were sending data out to doctor surgeries, to local schools, to businesses, all going well. Boris Johnson had a meeting with Bill Gates, right? And a week later, guess what happened? No more bits of paper that came from Westminster. It all stopped. And that was the start. Then I realized something's not right here. And then a number of things happened, and CCHQ and Richard Holden threw me under the bus. Hadn't done anything wrong, Richard Holden actually had. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I learned an awful lot fast. My next political activity was incredibly stupid, but again, I learned an awful lot. Man sitting over there with a brown jacket on needed an agent. I've been an agent. I thought, I can do this. If he needs me, I'll do it. So I became Andrew's agent. And Andrew said to me, you've worked out how bad it is in Westminster, but when you finally get in there and you see it firsthand, you won't believe it. Okay? I believed it, and I've seen what they've put him through, and it's not right. Right? Not right. We were at a farmers' meeting, Liz, Andrew, and the rest of us, we were there. And Bev Turner was there. And Bev was talking to Andrew, and I got a photograph with her. And I says, I'm David, I'm Andrew's agent. And she turns to Andrew and says, Andrew, what do you want an agent for? He says, oh, he goes to jail instead of me. Remember? And she says, I think I need one. So anyway, I learned a lot about what goes on in Westminster, the bad side. There isn't the good side. Honestly, there isn't. So then, back to my roots. We lost my father about 4 years ago. So the farm comes to me. So at 68, just a lad, I now have to take over the farm and sort it out. I actually rent the land out to another local farmer, and we look after, I actually shepherd his stock and help him farm, and we farm about 60 head of beef, and we have 100 acres, and the rest of it that the cows don't need is down to cereals. Does that mean we're running out of time? So I've got hours of this. So anyway, that's what we're doing now. I met Andy and we talked about electroculture, and we're about to start looking at that. But as you can see, Liz keeps me quite busy, and Andrew does his bit as well. So between farming and politics, I'm quite busy, but I'm trying to make more time for Andrew so we can get the electroculture started. It's an interesting time. Now, the farming side and why it's important. Mark left you with a lot of facts and information. Does anybody know the intervention price for barley in 1983? Does anybody know what intervention is? Intervention was the price that the EU paid you, right, a minimum price for a commodity, like wine or butter or barley. Remember the mountains and the lakes and all of this? Yes? Straight at it. Oh, sorry, guy. Hey, should I start again? So intervention was the price that they paid you is the rock bottom price. So you had a living, basically. The intervention price on barley in 1993, God, I'm showing my age now, 1983, was between 120 and 150 pound a ton, right? Mark, what's the price of barley now? Can you think of any other industry? That wasn't set up, by the way, was it? No. Can you think of any other industry where anything like that would happen? Yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's another good story. Can I change the subject again? In the late 1800s, they produced a silver coin, and it was worth £1. And for that silver coin, you could stay in any great hotel anywhere in Europe or London. In America, you probably have a street at hotels for that sort of money then. How many of these silver coins do you think you need now to stay in a hotel in London? Half of one. It's gone from £1 to over 400. Now, as the man at the back said, precious metals have a value. Food has a value. We have a value. And it's time now that actually, I could go through the presentation I was going to show you, I suppose. Why did we do this? Well, you know my story. Liz has a very similar story, but a lot longer. Sorry about that. Liz has a very similar story, and she'll tell you about it and introduce one or two of our friends in a minute. We did this to get a fresh start. We don't want any baggage. We don't want politicians who've given promises and then not lived up to them. We just don't want them. We want new people. We want you. Just like we want you to help the farmers, we want you to get involved. We want people with no baggage. Why no baggage? If people have baggage, you can control them. Why does nobody control Andrew Bridgen? Because they've took everything off him. He's got nothing left. Okay? Only his self-respect. Sorry, Andrew. So, they'll not get a self-respect. I've worked with him for long enough to know that's his and he's keeping it. So no baggage, so nobody can get their claws into them and make them do what they want as opposed to what we want. We want people that care about the communities and in the UK as a whole. Those who know Alex and the team up here, the ex-Reform guys, they cared about the community. They cared about the community. Now, what did Reform do to them? Kicked them out. Why? Because they couldn't get the clothes into them. You're much better. Much, much better. We want honesty and truth. No more lies. That's all we want. No more lies. And even if the truth is horrible, we still want to know. And then we'll make the decision. And then why the name? Without farmers and without food, you haven't got any freedom. It's as simple as that. If you can't feed yourselves, the government give you everything. Right? You'll be on universal credit. They'll tell you what you can do, what you can't do, and that's not what we want. So basically, what we want you to do tonight is grab some pieces of paper off the table, go and meet your local farmers and say, hey guys, have you seen this? You need to talk about this because they're the future. We care, and we know now. Liz, can we have a few words from you, please? I've given you an easy evening. Yeah, don't worry about it. You need to talk straight into it.
Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be back in Riddings. I was here in November last year and we had a full house then, and it looks as if we've got a full house tonight. I'm pleased to say, and you might not know this, we've got people from South Wales here tonight, from the New Forest, from Herefordshire. So it's not just local people that have come out tonight, they've come from all over to see Mark the Bowler Hat, Andrew Bridgen, Andy, and I hope Farmers Food and Freedom. Why Farmers Food and Freedom? David has just explained, but there are 40% of this country don't vote at the moment. And when I was talking to Andrew some time ago, Andrew Bridgen, he said to me he had a really rough time in the House of Commons, and the only people that would speak to him and said keep going were the cleaners, the people that produced his tea and coffee, and the people that were working in the House of Commons on the fabric. This party is for people like them, real people in this country. I am sick to the death of listening to politicians who don't do what they say. We in this party will not have a manifesto. Manifestos are there to be broken. We're starting the party back to common law, and I see tonight we've got some common law specialists in here. We'll take it right back to basics, and in common law, you cause no harm, loss, or injury. And on the other part of it is you do not break a contract. You will see tonight, if you take away with you, we've only got a small leaflet so far, which gives you a number of things that the party will be based on. So I hope very much that this is what everybody would like. It will be expanded on, and we look forward to everybody taking part. It isn't just about farmers, it isn't just about food, and it isn't just about freedom. It covers every aspect of our lives. Andrew talked about the EU Defence Union. It's something I've worked on, and if you go onto YouTube, I think you'll see me, I think probably with Adam Bolton, the awful Sky News chap, when I pulled him to pieces over the EU Defence Union. And so we cover absolutely everything: education, transport, child sex education in particular, 5G, climate change, you name it, it's covered. It isn't just about farmers and food and freedom, it covers everything. And on that happy note, I'm just going to give you two very short videos that I've done. One with a chap called Peter McElvenna, who you may know, and the other with a vet, Roger Meacock. Both of them, they're very short videos, but it just explains why they wanted to become part of Farmers Food and Freedom. Thank you very much.
Peter McElvenna, good morning, and you're going to do a very quick interview with us this morning. You were very kind when I first mentioned that we were starting the Farmers Food and Freedom Party to come along and say, yes, you thought this was not a bad idea. Can you tell us, because there's a lot of small parties about now, why you thought it was a good idea?
Well, one, because you say, and I get myself in trouble sometimes, Liz, for saying, yes, what is it you want to do? So when you have that kind of connection with someone, you can just jump in and you trust their judgment. But why? Because it's reform is the Nigel show. And as entertaining as the Nigel show may be, it's not going to deliver. It's around that personality, that messianic figure, as Rupert Lowe said in that article. So I am politically homeless since UKIP basically folded, in effect, and looking around, and I'd love to be engaged politically. I'm wondering, who do I vote for? So it's not just engaging with the public, it's actually personally who I put next beside, and at the moment it's very difficult to know who. And therefore, Liz, when you came Farmers, Food and Freedom, I mean, the issue in freedom, hugely concerned about surveillance, about privacy, about censorship. We are facing all of that. But then it seems as though we have abandoned our industries. And if we can't feed our population, if we rely elsewhere, then we are in dire straits. And we just have to look at the tariffs that President Trump has put, and the disruption, whether that's good or not, separate thing, but the disruption that can cause to the supply chain. And we need to be self-sufficient, and we are not. And I think it's key that we get back to actually supporting our farmers. And I've been to 2 of those demonstrations in Westminster. We need food security. It is key. And those who provide maybe are not the high up superstars, and therefore they're ignored, but they're what makes us function, because if we don't have food, we don't function. I mean, it's quite simple. Probably even Ed Miliband would actually get that, although it might be too far for him. So yeah, we need to regain our freedoms, that individual liberty, individual responsibility, and we need security with our food chain and many other areas. So I think it's perfect. It fits in, and why not give this a go? I think it may succeed, it may not, but you don't know if you don't try. And I think this is a great idea, something that can build, that can engage with the public, and I see this as having widespread public support.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, you're quite right. And I was talking to the wonderful Roger Meacott, the vet, yesterday, and they're desperately trying to get rid of meat, all meat, out of our diet by 2030, by all scurrilous means that they can think of. And, you know, it may be that there's some people that are now vegan and vegetarian, and that's absolutely fine. But what about the rest of the people who have had a diet, for instance, of meat all their life, fresh meat, homegrown, you know, specifically in the UK? What's going to happen to all the hill farmers, for instance, you know, etc.? Now, this party isn't just about farming and food and freedom. It covers every sector, as you know. And the other main sector that we're going to cover is defence. And if you want freedom, you've got to talk about defence, haven't you?
Oh, huge. And I think back in the Falklands, we were 5.5% of our GDP spent on defence. Then we went down to 2%. Now it's, well, let's take money from here and call that defence spending. As we did, we'll take money from here and call it foreign aid spending. So there's a lot of fiddling with the figures, and that's, I guess, what Rachel from accounts is there to do, to fiddle those figures. But we need security, absolutely, and we need manufacturing to return to the UK. We cannot expect, I mean, look at our energy. The steel plant that was going to be shut down, and one of the issues was actually supplying energy, supplying coal. So we were buying coal from Japan and bringing it all the way over, and it seems as though Japan doesn't actually produce coal. So the Japanese coal comes from Australia. So it goes Australia, Japan, UK, all because we can't mine 18 miles down the road from that plant. And the stupidity of net zero, the stupidity of let's trust NATO or the EU or the Americans, or I think we've forgotten our position in the world. Britain has always punched above its weight. For a little island to have what a quarter of the world in the empire doesn't make sense, but that's how geopolitics works. And we need to protect that. We need to protect our industries. We need to look at building out our defense and actually have an air force and a navy and an army that we are proud of. I think I saw the other day that we had 30 battle tanks that were actually ready to go. We've got 2 aircraft carriers, and they spent most of their time getting fixed or getting updated. So we don't actually we spend billions on these huge projects, and they sit in a dock somewhere getting fixed. And I've seen some of the warships have been withdrawn because we don't have enough sailors. The whole thing is, if it wasn't about our actual security and existence as a nation, it would be laughable. Sadly, it's not, and it's serious. And the Tories have destroyed our defence industry. They chipped away at that. Labour seemingly the one that want to increase that to 3%. We live in a crazy world when a socialist government is actually more in the right than the Conservative government. So I agree 100%. We need to restore pride in our armed forces. Whenever we have days to celebrate, like VE Day coming up, remember, in 80 years, that has to be part of our education system. You want the public to come out, and I think kids now, they don't even think, well, Remembrance Day, what's that about? They need to be part of that, and we need to instill this belief in our position as a nation, and that is our military. And sadly, because the military has been decimated, that we no longer see it represented in our front benches, in our government, in our royal family. It's not visible, and we need to change that. And part of that is you have to put in money. If you want to build something, it costs, and we have to decide as a nation what we put into that and rebuilding our military. So it's something that we are proud of and can protect us.
And doesn't go into the EU Defence Union, which is what everybody seems to be hell-bent on. We need our own defence force. And when you think, Peter, now that the numbers in the army are less than the people that we've got staying in hotels that have come over here illegally, then you know that we're in trouble. But all these things under Farmers' Food and Freedom will be attacked, including education, transport, the health service, excess deaths, all the things that aren't being talked about, we're going to bring out. And for your support, and it's just absolutely invaluable. I can't thank you enough.
No, it's fine. And look, my last point is, we want a party that is principled, that knows what it believes and stands and presents that to the public as the way that our nation should be run. And sadly, with reform, it's focus groups and opinion polls, and it's whatever whatever you think the public will want. And I think it was Henry Ford that said, if he asked the public what they wanted in terms of transport, they would have said a faster horse. So come up with an idea, with a vision for the country. That is something I think that reform are hugely lacking. The only vision is superstar status of Mr. Farage, of that leader. And we want to have a fully a full manifesto with ideas, with visions, and how you build out the country in every area. And that's what that's also what I like about what you've put down, Liz, that you want to offer solutions in every area, and not just one or two sound bites, but actually doing something that changes the country and maybe reclaims part of the goodness that we have in the UK.
Yes, the only thing I would come to grief with you over is the word manifesto, as every manifesto has been broken over the last few years, and they're not worth we're calling this a contract that under common law, which we're going back to underpin everything, you cannot break a contract. So the contract that we write up is the contract that we will deliver, and there will be no shilly-shallying and departing from it, no matter what they say the figures are when you get into power. So that's exactly where we come from. Peter, thank you so much for your time. It's fantastic. We'll work together on this, and we will make it work. There's only one way to do it, and that's the people to do it. If we wait for the politicians to do anything, we'll be waiting a hell of a long time.
It's always good to chat, Liz, and sorry I couldn't join you there in person. I know you'll have an awesome time there with great people who will be 100% behind this and want to build a better future for a country. So yeah, I'll miss you all there together, but I'd love to be there. But next time, I'm 100% with Liz.
Hello, everybody. This is a very short introduction to a wonderful vet called Roger Meacock from down in Wiltshire in the West Country. And he's just going to tell us why he's joined the Farmers Food and Freedom Party. Roger, good evening and welcome.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, very happy to be here. And yeah, when Mark told me that, the Farmers Food and Freedom Party was starting, would I like to be associated in some way, then, I was more than happy to, because I started off my vet life as a farm-only vet. Our food is crucial to our security in the UK, and farming has been under attack, since as far as I can remember, back when I first started in practice in the 1990s. I've sort of felt it started back there, and obviously it's ramped up, more recently to a greater extent. So, I'm very, very much aware of the attack. I'm also very much aware that it's not a miscalculation. Actually, it's a very much a deliberate attack. There is an agenda that is in government documents and by organisations that have put documents together that have been bought and paid for by the government, which they've got, an aim to bring meat and dairy consumption down to zero. So the agenda is to get rid of meat and dairy consumption, which means they must be thinking of getting rid of dairy and meat and livestock farming altogether, which is absolutely criminal for the land as well as for our food, and there's lots of other things wrong with our politics as well. So more than happy to be involved and hopefully get us back to a less litigious, controlled way of living, and get back to some old proper values that I know is what we're trying to embody.
Roger, thank you very much. As you probably don't know, but I work a lot with countries all over the world, and in particular I've done an awful lot with the farmers in New Zealand, because New Zealand is the country that falls off the bottom of the planet, and the plight down there. But what people don't realise is it's exactly the same down there as it is here. Exactly the same agenda is being played out across the world. Unfortunately, Roger, farmers have thought here that we've just got naff governments in the last few years. But as you've just pointed out, this is a different agenda, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody's heard of net zero, but there's probably a lot of farmers who aren't aware there's an absolute zero document as well that was, again, a government inspired and financed report by a group called FIRES, FIRES. So, that the agenda is definitely there, and they're saying by 2030 they can get meat consumption down to zero, but maybe not that far, but maybe down to 16 kilos per person per year, which is, crazy to, meat and grass-fed ruminants are the sort of the base of or should be the pyramid of our food pyramid. They are the most important, most nutritious food we can have, and we don't want to lose them. And we need to get this nation healthy again, and that's going to be done best on the back of farming and getting back into regenerative farming as well.
Roger, thank you very much. We're only going to do a very short one tonight. You've very kindly come and agreed to come down. We've got an event on the 17th of May at Exeter Racecourse, and you're going to come down and talk to us then. And of course, we'll put up that anybody can look at your website and the work that you've done, particularly on things like PCR testing recently. They're obviously going to try and get rid of farming and the livestock through foot and mouth. So the PCR testing that they're going to do is going to prove that we, beyond all reasonable doubt, that we've got foot and mouth back here. What a load of baloney, I'll use the words.
Yeah, I think it certainly starts with B. Yeah, no, it's, I'm happy to come down and explain to the farmers what the tests are and how they are being misappropriately used and interpreted. Farmers need to be aware of what they're being asked us potentially to subject their animals to. So, I think, the only way we're going to be able to resist is through knowledge and truth. And that's what I know we're trying to stand for and trying to bring. So, bring it on.
Roger, thank you very much indeed, and we look forward to seeing you in person in Devon. And I hope that we do more interviews like this, but of a longer nature. But thank you for taking the time out this evening.
No, lovely. Thanks very much, and I hope you have a good evening. And hello to everybody who knows me there.
On our farm, we actually sit on top of 1 million tons of world-class quality coking coal, and it's called the Priestfield site. And the Priestfield site runs right round the valley, and it goes to this open cast site. And it was all up and running, run by the Banks Group, and all of the coal was sold to Tata Steel. Remember, they used to have a couple of those blast furnace things, and they were running on British coal, producing the best coal in the best steel in the entire world. A guy called Genrick, have you heard of him? He's a conservative, right? He's got a mouth which goes quite a lot. Genrick and his mate, who got done for fiddling, shut it down with coal left in the ground. And all the coal that was left in the ground was sold to Tata. So they didn't get the coal, they had to get dirty coal from Poland, and they couldn't make the steel. And look what happened to them. Okay, so that's another story outside of agriculture, but the important thing is all the coal is still in the ground. Okay, that resource is there. You've heard how much gas we have. That resource is all there. Our kids are going to have a wonderful future if we can get rid of these bloody idiots at the top. All yours, Mark.
Okay. Guys, thank you all so much for staying so late. Conscious it's nearly 10 o'clock. It's been amazing to come back here again and to get the chance to address the room again. Thank you for Andy speaking about electroculture. The legend, Andrew Bridgen. For Dave and Liz coming to talk about farmers' food and freedom. Thank you. For those of you who have taken the time to travel from some long distances,
Thank you.
and those who have taken the time to support each and every one of us on our journey. So guys, thank you very much for all you've done. And I'm sure the guys on the stalls, and especially the guys at the back of the organic veg boxes, don't forget them, and don't forget to tip matey before he goes home. Thank you, everybody.